Hey guys, I want to make my full video guide for my league starter, and that is Poisonburst Pathfinder. This build is shaping up to be one of the strongest, if not the strongest bow build next patch, and overall one of the strongest builds in the entire game, because Pathfinder is getting some massive buffs, and Poison is also getting some really nice massive buffs. Now, as a warning, the full patch notes, like always, are not always done until the very last minute. It is currently Tuesday, patch comes out Friday. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but at least so far, this build has pretty much only received the buffs in the patch notes. I will go over everything. But yeah, I'll have the full Mobalytics guide linked down below. I'll also go over it in this video as well. You keep in mind, I'll have a separate leveling video for people that want a fully detailed leveling guide with a fully detailed level Mobalytics as well. It's not done yet, but it will be done before 0.4. All right, so what is this build and why is it very strong this patch? So this build is just a Poison Pathfinder build, utilizing Poisonburst arrow and toxic growth for a single target with gas arrow and vine arrow to help them out. So for mapping, it's a one button build. So if you like one button builds, hey, this is for you. All you do for mapping is cast Poisonburst arrow, and that is it. Early on, when you're undergeared, you might have to use toxic growth, which is not a big deal, as you do quickly get enough damage where Poisonburst becomes a one button clear, similar to that of L8 and rods. So the main combo of this build, while you're doing boss and this stuff, or if you're doing rares that you tank at the start, is that toxic growth will summon down these pods, and these pods will explode when they are dealt enough poison damage. The way we achieve that in this build is just gas arrow. So it's automatic explosions. You place on your gas arrow and you just spam your pods, and that's it. So it's a very, very simple, single target rotation. Really simple and really strong as well. This build next patch can easily reach the likes of like 20, 30, even 40 million DPS. You can insta kill bosses. That's how strong this build is going to be next patch. And as for Vine Arrow, there's just bonus edit damage. Honestly, you don't really even need this skill on your bars. You can use it. It's good for early on, but once you're like giga geared, yeah, you could drop the CO1, but it's the same deal. It just activates and gets more damage as you poison it. So the full single target on a boss will look something like where you place your gas arrow, you place your Vine Arrow, then you spam toxic growth, and that's it. You don't use poison burst for single target. This is only for clear, and yeah, like I said, it's a one button clear skill. So yeah, that's how the build functions. Of course, there is also some map gameplay as well, but yeah, very strong build, pretty similar to that of LA rods, but is a different twist. So let's go over Poisonburst Pathfinder, some notable buffs and nerfs. There's a lot coming this patch, which is overall vastly buffing this build. So the first buff is Mobalytics Fang. So Mobalytics Fang right here, which I have in inventory. This currently gives 30% more hit damage, which is effectively 30% more poison damage, because poison is based off your hit damage in PoE 2. This is going to 40%. So yeah, this is just a free 10% more damage. It was already the best support, or one of the best supports in the build, and it's just getting buffed. So yeah, free 10% more damage. The next massive buff is Karuk's Resolve. So this is a very massive buff. So the support gem, as you can read it right now, currently it gives verificates supported skills. What does that mean? Essentially, it's Tangle Tongue. If you remember Tangle Tongue, this is the exact same effect as Tangle Tongue. Your critical strikes roll twice, and if you crit both times, then you apply 2x of your critical damage. So we all remember how strong Tangle Tongue was in 0.2, and this support is exactly that. It is completely broken. The downside is currently you have to use a supported skill once every 20 meters. So, which makes this pretty much unusable in the current patch. But in the next patch, this downside is getting completely removed, and it's being replaced with your critical strike chance is capped at 50%. Now, as bow builds or like other builds like crossbows as well, this is not really a downside because you never really get above 50% crit because bows have really bad critical strike chance. So this is pretty much pure upside. We are getting Tangle Tongue on bows. It is just completely broken. I do expect the support to be expensive next patch, but yeah, that is a massive endgame buff for this build. It's going to give you a ton of damage. Next is we're getting more surpass nodes on the skill tree, or I guess new surpass nodes. Surpass is a new mechanic in 0.4. What surpass does is that every 100% surpass chance gives you +1 arrow. So we're getting ways to get +1 arrow on the skill tree. This could be good, but we don't know the numbers on the skill tree, how much % chance you can get. We'll have to wait and see, but this could be a buff. Next is Hyri's Ire got massively buffed. This thing has 50% more base evasion, and you get a 25% damage with extra cold. This is a buff to any evasion based build that can use this chest. It's just a very strong chest this patch now. It is a tier 1 unique, so it might be a little bit expensive. It's not needed for the build whatsoever, but it is a buff, and I did want to mention it. Now I'm talking about the multiple Pathfinder buffs. So the Pathfinder Ascendancy is being changed a lot. So the first one is that a poison prolif node is being removed. And you may think, oh, is this a nerf to the build? You won't have prolif anymore? Not really. It's actually a big buff because this was 2 Ascendancy points and it gave you prolif. But you get free prolif already if you just use Hold of Plague for 30 Spirit, and it's actually bigger range as well. So for 30 Spirit, you're saving 2 Ascendancy points. So I would call that a pretty massive buff. 2 Ascendancy points is definitely worth more than 30 Spirit. The next big buff, and definitely I think the biggest one, is Running Assault now also has cannot be stunned while sprinting. This is definitely going to cause the sprint meta next patch, which is what I predict. Sprinting is going to be extremely fast next patch, and I expect a lot of people to play Pathfinder to be a sprinter. So yeah, this is going to have 50% less movement speed penalty when using skills. That's pretty nice. It makes you faster while attacking, of course. And it's going to have cannot be knocked down while sprinting. Also just keep in mind, Roa just got nerfed. It requires 100 Spirit now. So I expect even more people to play the Sprint in Pathfinder. And this will more than likely make Sprint in Pathfinder the fastest build in the game, at least for League Start. Of course, when you have like multi-mirrors and stuff, you can still do the perma blink stuff. But yeah, for like League Start and mid-game and early end game, Pathfinder is more than likely going to be the fastest build in the entire game. Keep in mind, next patch, you can get 120 bonus move speed while sprinting. You can get 25% for the new Soul Core. You can double that with the Essence modifier on the boots. So the one that gives you a 100% increase effect of socketed items. You get 20% from the skill tree, and sprint is 50% at a base value, giving you 120%. And you actually do path by these sprint nodes, so you can grab them. And also multiple sources of reduced movement speed penalty on the skill tree. You know, stuff like this node right here have all been nerfed, and also multiple sources of them got deleted from the game. Stuff as the runes and the chest implicit. Yeah, all that's being nerfed, which gives way higher value to run an assault. That 50% less is going to be pretty valuable next patch. Sustainable practice is now only 2 points to reach instead of 4. Just an overall extremely good buff, because currently you had to waste 4 skill points to reach there, because practice remedies was completely useless. They are removed this next patch. Made you immune to shock, freeze, or ignite, which honestly for 2 sensi points is kind of worthless. Yeah, this node is extremely good when you have high evasion, gives you extremely good defense. Not needed to take, but yeah, it is buffed now, and you now can just take it for 2 points. So overall, another really nice Pathfinder buff. Now to talk about the nerfs / potential nerfs. So the only big potential nerf is lowering the percent ES in the skill tree, which GG has confirmed. We just don't really know how much is being lowered by, but I don't think it's a big deal unless it's around like -50%. It's only around -20% to -30% in the skill tree. Overall, the build is still extremely fine for defense, not a big deal. My endgame plan is going to have over 2k ES. So if you want from like 2k ES to 1.5k ES, that's fine. The other nerf is Ghost Dance. Ghost Dance to get nerfed, but it's still extremely strong. The limit runes. So this is actually a nerf to a lot of builds, but honestly, not that much to the way I built my character, because you already had multiple good runes to use on this character. So yeah, while runes are unlimited, this build didn't use like +1 arrow rune stack in any way. You can use like 1 +1 arrow, 1 +1 poison. On gloves, you can use 1 magnitude, you can use 1 attack speed. You had multiple good rune options in the first place. So for this, but at least the +1 limit runes is actually not a big nerf relative to how much of a nerf it is to like every other build in the game. Like spell characters losing like, you know, all the 3 +1 level spell skills is a big deal. But for this build, honestly, not a big deal. So yeah, that's pretty much all the changes this build is getting. As you can see, the vast majority of it is just big buffs to the build. I expect this build to have probably roughly like 20-30%, if not more, damage next patch, possibly even higher because of the way poison works with Garrick's Resolve. This support is just absolutely insane. It's extremely good. And yeah, this support might alone be like 50% more damage if I'm just doing the math correctly because of how poison works. You know, poison in PoE2, if you're not aware, does have a cap. So you can have 100 poisons on an enemy, but only your 6 most damaging poisons will deal damage to the enemy. So when you're playing a crit build like this, essentially, you know, it doesn't matter if you only have like 30-40% crit, because if you hit the boss 20 times and only like, you know, let's say 8 of them crit, well, if you only do the 8 most damaging poisons, that means you're effectively getting 8 crit poisons. So I hope that makes sense, but it makes stuff like crit and Garrick's Resolve extremely strong for a build like this. You're really utilizing support to the maximum it can be used to. Now, the last thing to talk about this build is just the skill gems before we move on to the MOBA guide. But like I said, Poisonburst arrow for clear, Garrick's arrow and Toxic Growth for single target, and Vine arrow for some extra single target, but it's not needed if you don't want to press it. The only big thing here is the Herald of Blood tech. People have been doing this for multiple patches now, and it's extremely strong. And effectively, this gives you chain held explosion, and it's actually infinite chain if there's, you know, monsters to continue it can chain with. The whole tech here, and there's not much to it. It's just using Bleed 3 for 100% chance to inflict Bleed in and Burst and Plague. That is it. That is the whole tech. Of course, you also want a 100% chance to bleed with Poison 3. But yeah, that is the whole tech. Auto Blood on a bleed-based build has infinite change. It's extremely good for clear, and it's extremely satisfying as well. You get multiple pops and maps. It feels very, very satisfying to play. And yeah, we're using Herald of Plague just for the 1.8 meter poison prolif, really good for clear. Wind Dancer always strong in Ghost Dance, despite it being nerfed, it is by far still one of your best supports that you can use. Now, as for your last skill gem, which I don't have listed here, so I'm not sure which one I want to play, but your last skill gem you use is a utility gem for damage. So you can either use Despair or Stormcrawler Arrow. You would use this is only for bosses as well, by the way. So Despair, you would pre-cast on a boss because you have Cursed Ground, which would make it last on the ground, so you place it down before the boss is active. While Stormcrawler Arrow, you have to use after the boss is active, but Stormcrawler Arrow does give more damage than Despair. So yeah, there is an upside and downside here. You can use either one if you prefer one or the other. This is just for extra boss damage for early on. Once you get to end game and really good gear, you don't need to use any of these. You literally insta-kill every single boss in the game. But for early on, when you're under geared, you do want to use one of these setups. I'm not sure which setup I'm going to go with, but I did want to leave both options here. Yeah, now to quickly go over the Mobalytics Guide. Once again, the leveling Mobalytics Guide will be a separate link, and I will have it done before 0.4 launch. I'm currently been testing it out on live stream. So yeah, if you want to see me leveling, I will be doing it over the next couple of days. Either way, this is a full mobile guide. It's not done yet, and it will be done before 0.4 launch. Only have one setup right now. But of course, like always read everything in my Mobalytics Guide. I have everything here explained. What you want, or the most important stats on each piece of gear. So I go over, bow, quiver, rings, all that, right? You do need Plague Flinger gloves, see if you need them or not. While these gloves are extremely good, they are not required for the build. Essentially, these gloves make it extremely easy to gear. They aren't mandatory to use, and you won't be using them early on because it probably will be expensive. But these gloves allow you to get like flat LA on the rings. If you don't have these gloves, you don't want flat elemental damage anywhere because it won't do anything. But yeah, these gloves are extremely strong, but it's not needed to make the build work whatsoever. You can do all Ubers without Plague Fingers. They just make gearing so much easier. But yeah, just do read the full guide. I will have everything filled out before launch. Most of the stuff is already filled out, but I still have more stuff to add, of course. I also have like, gem links and gem quality prio, link prio, all that, the full passive skill tree. Right now, this skill tree is level 95, and I will have a lower level, like level 80 and level 70 skill tree as well. I will get to that before league launch, but yeah. Once again, everything will be in this Mobalytics Guide, and more will be added to this, even as the video is being uploaded. So do make sure to read it, as I do make my Mobalytics Guide quite in depth. Yeah, overall, that's about it. This is going to be my league starter, and of course, I'll always have my day 1, day 2, day 3 updates. I think this build is definitely going to be one of the strongest builds next patch. It's definitely one of the best builds that you can play next patch, at least as far as we can see with the patch notes. Anyway, that's about it. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below.